Hey, this is Rashonda Thornton, the Dietitian Against Diets podcast show. I am excited to introduce you to my new monthly panel series called Heart and Grit, Conversations with Mindful Leaders. Now, through these conversations, you will be able to connect to the trials and tribulations that they struggle, but also recognizing the success they've had in their lives. Thanks to Midwest Dairy, every month I will be joined by a different dynamic set of leaders who have done all the footwork behind the scenes, but they have done it with a passion and with their heart. This is an opportunity to connect with their stories, learn their struggles, and celebrate their successes. But most of all, find a way to connect to your life and how this can be an inspiration to you. Well, welcome to another episode of the Dietitian Against Diets monthly panel. So again, each month we focus on leaderships in their own respected industries. It's all about the heart and grit that they put behind their work and the passion that leads them that way. So for this particular month, we're going to focus on the ripple effects of the entertainment industry. Before I introduce my guest, I want to give you some insight on what I mean by that. So the evolution of entertainment has shaped ideas, ways people connect, and has made a permanent mark on people's lives. The beauty of entertainment always lies in its ability to expand a person's capacity of using creativity, art, and expression that others can relate to. So, as you see right now, I'm going to introduce you my guest panel who spans across the board from music to theater to comedy and many other corners of art. Listening to the leaders in their respected industries will show you their passion, their successes, and their struggles. So I want to introduce you to first, I have to my right, I have Rafe Williams. He's a well-known St. Louis comedian, actor. Right below him, I have Chris Hansen. He's the executive director of the Kreuzberg Arts Foundation here in St. Louis. And last but definitely not least, I have John Henry right below me. He's the co-founder of Open Highways Music Festival, and he's also a musician as well. And so, gentlemen, I want to say thank you to the show today.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
And just so happily, just like in the industry, everyone either knows each other, have heard of each other. So it just shows you how tight wound the art industry is. But I'm going to go ahead and jump into this conversation because I have several questions. I want to find a way to get them all out. So I know in each of your respective positions, you all have some form of leadership role, whether it's paving the way for others or creating a space for others. And so a lot of times we think about a decision. We're going to talk about the decision of why and how we created this pathway in our lives. So, Chris, I'm going to start off with you. You also have a background as a musician that has been the foundation of your work within areas of the art industry. So now, as a businessman and been known as the arts innovator, what light bulb moment happened that brought these two worlds together?
I think it was more of out of necessity. When you're coming up as a young artist and musician, you look to your left and your right and you try to figure out how you're going to connect the dots. And I wanted to be a family man. I wanted to raise a family, so I had to figure out how I was going to support my family and be an artist and be a musician. So I soon learned that somebody in our contemporary artists was going to have to step up and be more transactional, do the business, advocate for our group of artists in our community. So I feel like it wasn't so much a light bulb moment for me, but just a recognition of my own strengths and what I could bring to the table and how I could support and benefit those around me. And so I just kind of leaned in to that side of the work, and I knew that was going to be at somewhat of a detriment to the artistic side of my work. So I just bundled all the creativity I was putting into my percussion and channeled more of it into the business of the arts. And over the years, I've moved more and more in that direction. And unfortunately, I don't get to play as much music as I used to. But I don't know if it was a light bulb moment, more so than just understanding of what was needed at the time.
Yeah, no, that's a great story because a lot of times, sometimes the light bulb moment, sometimes you just find yourself in a place where you see there's a need. And it seemed like you saw that need, and so you decided to create some sacrifices to what you do personally and try to create ways for others can have these opportunities like that. So, no, that's really great. Speaking of someone who has just kind of switched gears in their career, John Henry, I'm going to kind of tap you on this one. You've been called a rock and roll lifer, which is pretty significant. Your career started off as a singer-songwriter, and you've been a well-respected musician outside of just the Midwest. over the country, as a matter of fact. So, like, what led to the creation of you co-founding the Open Highway Musical Festival?
Yeah, I had, I guess, echoing Chris a little bit, kind of coming up, I had always been the guy in my band that handled the business side. I would settle the shows. So gravitated to the business and started liking putting on shows and had done some touring and came back home and decided I thought putting on a festival could be a cool idea in St. Louis for rock and roll Americana music. And it just blossomed from a really simple idea. And 10 years later, yeah. So pretty basic beginning, just wanting to do something that I thought would be fun, that I'd want to go to. So
I think that's the fun part. Like, you don't even know what it's going to turn into, but you like it. And so you assume that it's pretty good stuff. And so you just kind of open up a way that others can follow and be a part of, and then just let it take its weight. And you say for 10 years you've been hosting this annual festival?
Yeah. It's 10 years.
That means it's been pretty powerful, I would say.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
I know that. So.
Yeah. No, that's great to hear. Now, Rafe. So Rafe is, as I said again, he is comedian, improviser, actor. He's done several different things, but we're going to stay in the space of comedy, and then we're going to spin it in other ways moving forward. Now, I know many people take the safe route, and I'll put quotations around that because we know what that means in their career. But when they do, they find that there's a missing piece to having a passion for what they do. And to me, that's key. With that being said, did you see yourself / your life, where you are now? And if so, what was that unique spark to kind of open the lights to your eyes to seeing this can be something that you want to do for the rest of your life?
Well, you mean to be insane enough to pursue comedy?
Something like that.
Yeah, I think that there's, yes, I think I tried out. I'm from the rural Midwest. I grew up in a town of 500 people in Southern Illinois. So I tried on a lot of other people's expectations for me before I kind of went all in and was like, I think I'd rather fail doing what I want to do than succeed as a prison guard or a coal miner, which were the two main professions where I'm from.
Wow.
With coal mining, not really crushing it right now either. So I think that there's a calling and a passion to being an artist. And at some point, I do still think that some things translate. The harder you work, the luckier you get type lunch pail mentality, and being kind to people seems to go a long way. So I think you could still apply things from other professions into an artistic profession, and they still serve you well.
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of being creative. You have the ability to use it how you want and mold it the way you want, and the more that you do it, the more it just becomes, you see more of who you are through that, your works and the things that you do. And I think the kind of, to me, what this for passion continues to kind of like continue to overflow, because you don't see what it's going to be, but there's something to it, and each step that you take forward, it's just a reaffirmation of I'm doing the right thing, I'm doing something right, So I think that's the beauty to stepping out there and doing things like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Now, we're going to talk about like each one of you guys in what you do within your industry. You're like opening eyes to a lot of people that are watching, and people watching all the time. And so, John, I'm going to bring the conversation back to you. There's a reason behind every choice that may be made that's not really recognized until later in life, or let's say a year later. Now that you said 10 years, in managing Open Highway Music Festival, how did you weave in co-founding this company as a musician to acquiring these attributes to lead in areas of your life that didn't seem as natural?
I think, I spent a lot of time trying to put on a better festival and try to become a better leader. I like to read a lot of historical, a lot of nonfiction with leadership involved in it. So I'm constantly trying to learn different things. I think that one of the things that has been hard for me was learning how to delegate a little bit better, and it's something that I'm still working on now. But just kind of surrounding yourself in a with a team of people who you trust completely, and you know that they can handle anything that is called for. So I would say that's kind of been what I've been trying to be better at, is delegating.
Yeah. I would say that's I see Ray shaking his head. I'm sure Chris over there can feel the same way. When it's your baby or when you see the bigger picture, it's hard to like let go and let someone else kind of take the reins of it. Um, Rafe, I talk a little bit about some of the other things that you've been doing. Now, there have many accolades that came along with what you've been doing over the last 7 to 10 years. You've been in sketch comedy, featured in several magazines. You have a new album called Young Grandpa. What would you say were the pivoting moments, you had to take that ultimately led to these individual achievements? And again, I want to ask you as the second question to that, how can this help inspiring the next inspiring comedian?
Okay, first part of the question was what were pivotal moments?
For some of the different achievements that you made, what were some pivotal moments when say decision
Sure.
when it comes to decision making that like caused you to take this opportunity or pass on another one or just take this chance? Like what were some of the pivotal things that happened that kind of opened up those achievements that you acquired?
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say I came from an attitude. I kind of tried to approach everything from because I got a late start in comedy for a very ageist business. So I was like, I'm going to say yes, because anything in art, repetition is of value. So at the beginning, it was like just say yes and be kind and trust the universe to take care of you. And I know that sounds kind of new agey and corny, but that honestly has served me well. You say yes enough, and then you get to a point where you can start to say no to things.
Yeah.
But I think the most pivotal moments, one lesson that I've learned is things that feel like failures at the time end up being a launch pad for something later. I've had things that I thought were going to be my big break that weren't, but someone else saw it later because I said yes to something.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that got me the next job. That
Yeah.
did end up being a pivotal moment. So I think everything is a pivotal moment. And if you make every project that you're working on the most important thing and try to be in the present, that has served me really well of being like, I just want to make this thing the best I can make it, bring my voice to it, try to make it as funny or as entertaining as I can. And even if it doesn't always work, you might meet someone in that project or someone. I've had people reach out about things I thought nobody saw on YouTube and be like, I saw this, I thought you were great. I'd love to cast you in my short film. So
Wow.
it's like, you never know if you treat everything with respect and like it's important. I think it pays dividends later. So one pivotal moment just leads to the next. And sometimes things in the moment can feel like, oh, well, that didn't go the way I wanted it to, but that might just be the universe setting you up for a comeback later.
I so agree with that. And a lot of times we're looking for the quick turnaround or sometimes the uncertainty of what happens if we decide to say yes to this. We don't know, but like you said, just continue to say yes. And a lot of things that you do, and I could say this in my profession, if you look behind the scenes of everything I've done, nothing was the big moment. It was all of it just adding up together, which kind of to me set your foundation. And again, because of social media and because of technology, people can always go back and pull things and see what you've done 10 years, 20 years from now. So I just think sometimes especially inspiring musicians, comedians, anyone in the form of arts, just keep grinding, doing your work. And at some point, it's going to pay off. May not be immediately, but it will at some point of your life and career. So that's very true what you were saying. Yeah.
Yeah. And some good advice that I had gotten from another comedian was, and I'm sure that it's in every art form. I'm sure, John and Chris can attest to this. Like the big moments, the tops of the waves, of the peaks are real far apart. And, I had a really good friend and mentor tell me, like, if you live only for the peaks, this business will grind you down. So find joy in the work, find joy in the valley, the work that has to happen in between those peaks, writing a new joke or making something that you're really proud of, even if it doesn't get all the eyes on it that you want. And he's like, if you could figure out a way to live in the present and have joy in that, uh, you'll stay young forever in the business. I always think
Interesting.
about that when I'm like, I didn't get this thing I wanted. And it's like, yeah, you can't get everything. Just work hard and maybe the next thing will fall into your lap.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. My mom always told me, "What's meant for you, you'll have," and that's the bottom
Right.
line, you know. Chris, now you've been on both sides of it, so it's like why Rafe was talking. I want to see what your perspective was as a director, and you're working with so many different forms of art. You know, when you're seeing any entertainment professional, working their butt off, trying to, just align themselves to move forward and progress in their passion. Like are you able to discern like the ones that you see are still relentless in their struggles, or the ones that you see just kind of like throw their hands up? Like how does it look in your perspective when you see an individual like Ray versus someone else that they really want it, but you question, do they really really want it?
Well, I think in anything in life, if you work hard enough, you can make something happen from that hard work. And I think Rife said it earlier, like there's a lot of things outside of the art that apply, right? And hard work, integrity, character, honesty, kindness, all those things that get you pretty far. Making people comfortable with your presence is a big deal. You might have all the best ideas in the world. You might be the most creative person in the world, but if someone doesn't want to listen to you, if you don't put off something that people want to pay attention to, it's not going to click for you. So, I think I see a lot of artists working hard, not always working smart. I think
Mm,
it is like Rafe said, it's a measured, paced process that you really got to be in it for the long game. You can't ask for it to, pay dividends too fast, and you got to put more in than you're getting out for a very long period. Showing up is another big part. A big part of my career early on that I still cash in dividends on today was I showed up, right? I showed up, I supported, I got out, I was in the mix. Now, in my middle agedness with 4 children, I rely on people remembering that I showed up and was in the mix because I can't always be there. And so I think, for artists that really want to make this a career, you got to have all those same principles that makes anybody successful at what they do. Um, and but you also have to approach this from a standpoint of not just trying to become rich and famous. Making art needs to satisfy you on a daily basis in ways that don't always have a return on investment. And you got to find a way to set measurable goals and reasonable goals. Uh, I'd like to see more artists have an opportunity to just make a nice middle class living being an artist. I mean, what a beautiful thing to just make art and pay your bills and take care of your family. And then there's this other approach, right? And those things are a needle in a haystack a lot of times. So making more sustainable everyday artists that have a community and a city that will support them in a way that they can make a living and take care of themselves and their people, I think is should be the first step in building your career. And then if you do it really, really well and you got that special thing and you connect all the dots and, Ray touched on something earlier and so did John, but, you just can't leave any stone unturned, any opportunity unvisited. I mean, I've never in my life walked away from an opportunity. I might not have taken that opportunity, but I at least looked at it.
mm-hmm.
If someone gives you a little crack in the door, you got to know how to get it all the way open to see what's in there. And I see too many artists missing
Hmm.
those opportunities for one reason or another, and you just can't afford to do that in this industry. You have to look and you have to find out what's there. It might not be for you, and you can hand it back. You don't have to take it. But to think opportunities are just going to keep coming when you turn away so many opportunities. I love that Ray, like he put back to Ray because he speaks about the universe. I mean, it's magic, it's finite, and you have to lean into a little bit of that to be in this world, to know that you have something special. You have to kind of know that if you keep using that magic, that it's going to do what it's supposed to do
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
your life. And that doesn't always mean it's going to make you rich and famous, but it's going to give you what you need. And if that's what you're looking for, this is, then you might find yourself successful in this hustle.
Yeah. And I like the way you laid that out, Chris. It was very important that you took the time to open it up, because I would think that when someone wants to be, successful in his or her art, sometimes they can get sidetracked with the money factor, just trying to be rich or trying to be famous, when they're losing, what are you doing this for? Are you doing this for a representation of yourself? You're doing it as an expression of yourself. And to me, I would see it can be a fine line between, it turns into, I'm just trying to do this to be the number one person or the top person or get all the accolades, rather than just living in and sitting into their art and letting it be a huge source of their happiness. Like, say, living a middle class life and doing your art, that's a pretty good balance. There is opportunity out there for individuals that do, make it to the next level, but don't let that be like your only representation of happiness or success. I think that's important. So let's talk about behind the scenes. And I say behind the scenes because, again, each and every one of you guys are literally on the front line, where everyone sees you. But I think it's very important to highlight, that every pathway it may not look like it seems on the outside. There's work that's been done behind it. And to me, with everything that we do as far as our passion, there's always strife behind it. And that, to me, what makes us continue to move and be stronger and better in what we do, because we carry that strife with our passion. So, Rafe, I'm going to give the mic back to you. As a comedian, I mean, you keep things light. You make people feel uncomfortable, comfortable. You brighten up people's day, and that's memorable. But I guess I'm sure any comedian would tell you that it's a roller coaster behind the scenes. And in your experience, what would you say has been your biggest struggle personally that you have to overcome to keep pursuing and following your passion?
That's a good question. I would say that the old adage, comedy comes from pain, is unfortunately usually true. I don't know a ton of real well-adjusted comedians. I know a couple that came from like happy homes and things like that. So I think finding your voice as an artist is hard, and like being able to bring authenticity and vulnerability to your work. And I think that takes time. You got to learn how to be, you have to learn how to be funny, just like you have to learn scales, just like you have, learn how to play your instrument of choice, learn how to manipulate your vocals. And a lot of people can't get that part down. And if you can't get that part down, you can't move into the next part, which is like, now you know how to play. What do you want to say? What do you want to say or be as an artist? And I think a lot of times that's the biggest struggle. And I think that's a universal struggle for whatever your art. I don't care if you're a painter or a sculptor. Like, once you learn the craft, how you apply it in a way that's authentic to you, and not trying to imitate something or reverse engineer a career out of like you said, all the overnights, everyone's like, oh, you're an overnight success. You're like, oh, that overnight success took 10 years. It's the behind the scenes stuff, or we see it. And the brass ring's always moving, and you have to fight that. You have to always fight. Like, if I told myself 5 years ago where I would be today, I would be ecstatic. But you always want the next thing. You want to grow. That's what artists should want for themselves, is to grow. And you can get caught in that, always wanting more and never taking a minute to just enjoy where you're at. That was like another good piece of advice someone gave me, like a guy that wrote for Saturday Night Live. Like, everyone wants to know, how did I do it? He's like, I'll save you. They ask the wrong questions. I think people ask how'd you get that instead of how'd you do that? There's a big difference between those two questions.
Because you didn't get it. Like, you worked for it.
Right. Yeah. Or it's just like I became good at something, and that opportunity presented itself, like Chris talked about, as where luck and opportunity usually meet is the intersection of hard work and kindness. And it's like, a lot of people just want the end result, and they don't want to know anything about the process of how. And I think if you learn more about the process, the end result will take care of itself. So I think that's a struggle for a lot of comedians. And we can't all be Kevin Hart. it's okay if you have an audience and you can make a living doing this. Like, but then you get to that point where you are the middle class artist, and you're like, well, I wouldn't mind being the upper middle class artist. you know, then you get there and you're like,
Yep.
well, I wouldn't necessarily mind if I did a stadium tour. And it's like, it's okay to have those dreams and aspirations, but don't set yourself up to feel like a failure. I always try to think of like what my 13-year-old self would think if I could just be like, hey, guess what? We just opened for Dave Attell. You know,
Yeah.
you would be ecstatic to hear that, but present day me is like, well, I just want to be headlining. I want to be making Dave Attell money.
Yeah.
So, don't get caught up in that because that's not real.
Yeah. I appreciate that. That helps. That's very helpful. John, in the music industry, again, here we go talking about what people see. You're on stage, so that's all people see, and they're enjoying themselves. But the obstacles and hours of hard work can sometimes be overlooked, obviously. But fortunately, your passion always prevails. What's been your biggest struggle when it comes to, you on a personal level, when you know that everyone on the outside, as far as your audience, your crowd, your fans, they're seeing the glamour and glitz, but when it comes to that, it's more to it than just the glamour and glitz. So just kind of give us some insight on just the work that you've done and how it's it's not so pretty on the inside, but it's definitely worth the work.
Yeah, I think hopefully if you're a grown up and you're in the entertainment business, you're doing it because you love it and it's your passion. So if you're super lucky, they cross each other where the thing that you love to do the most is the thing you're good at. But I would say that there's not necessarily a roadmap for being a successful songwriter or being a successful music business professional. You have to figure out your path in a little bit of outside the mainstream way, and you need to meet people who could help you along the way, people who could give you some advice, but it's not as clear cut as maybe some other careers that you would find. So I would just say figuring out a way to monetize what you do for a living as you get older was something that was important to me to figure out at a young age. So
yeah. Okay, no, that's helpful because the ride doesn't go it doesn't go forever sometimes. So you have to know what it can be other avenues that stays within your passion that can still continue to support yourselves and others as what you're doing with the music festivals. Now that's great insight. We're getting very close to a close, but I do want to end off with giving everyone another question because, again, we're still talking about ourselves, but we're using ways to help others that are quite interested or scared to make those moves, but we want to inspire them to follow their passion. Chris, I know that the Kronsberg Foundation is so vital in influence and education, welcoming communities and focusing on equity, diversity, and inclusion. With your venues and workspaces created to provide opportunity for others, if you came across anyone that dealt with setbacks, second-guessing themselves, or just sometimes not being exposed to opportunities to help fulfill their passion, what would you give them as be their first step to take?
So maybe rephrase that question for me. So ask that one more time. So if someone just doesn't know they want to do it, but they just don't know how to take that first step out of the gate to figure it out. I'm going to go back to what I said before. Before you can become the artist, you have to be the fan. You got to show up. You got to be on the scene. So like if you really want to find ways to connect, you got to put yourself out there a little bit. Show up to an open mic. Show up and support someone that you admire and buy a ticket to their show. And if you can't afford to buy a ticket to their show, find a way to get yourself into the room. So I think importantly, it's just getting in the mix. Mm-hmm. Afraid to ask. One of the things we have this Wednesday night jazz crawl, and jazz jam that we've had as a free community event for a number of years. And what I love about it, it's where these professional musicians mentor and fellowship with the next generation. And what that's created in this next generation of young high school and college age players is they've learned how to network inside of the professional community. So all of a sudden, I would get calls and emails from these random high school college kids asking me about gigs. And I just thought that was too cool. I'm like, they're not even in it yet. They're still learning their craft. They're studying it to become a professional. But because of that access point, because there was a accessible place they can go, and I think having those community events are so important, that they felt important in the room, and the professional musicians made them feel worthy and put them on stage with them. They built confidence, and then they kind of knew, hey, well, how do I get a gig? And someone told them, well, you can call this person. And then people like us have to still be willing to pick up the phone, right? We have to be willing to say, hey, I'm so glad you called. Here's an opportunity, or here's where you can find one. So it's a two-way street. You got to put yourself out there a little bit. You got to show up. And then we as the industry have to be willing to accept where you're at and meet you there and find a way to get you into that pipeline. So, it's, but I think showing up is so important. And oftentimes artists want others to support them, but they don't go out and support their contemporaries.
I see that.
So
Very true.
I think that's a really good first entree.
Yeah, no, that's great to show both sides of it. John, real quick, when a person goes into music, what are some tips to be aware of, as well as inspiration to keep seeking what makes you happy in life? What should be in other words, what should be some things they kind of like be acknowledgeable about, or just consider, besides just jumping in there? What are some roadblocks that they should perhaps have some perceived understanding about?
I would say that if you're involved in the music business, that it's very helpful if you actually love the history of rock and roll and the history of music and songwriting and the artists of it, so that while you're working on whether it's writing your own song or booking other artists, you're still in that fabric of the history of something that you love. And for me, that was a big thing, just being working amongst people in a field that I love. That was the thing that helped me overcome anything that was negative at the time.
Great. Okay. No, that's great. All right. Last question, leave it to you. Every person that boldly steps outside of any norm to fulfill their passion will face times where they consider going back to status quo, or going back working in a coal mine field. In your world, what would be your words of encouragement to help redirect them back on their path?
Be patient. Setback is a setup for a comeback. Not to be too slogany, but I echo a lot of what the other gentleman said. Chris was talking about, like, Jerry Seinfeld. I listened to an interview, and he said if he could put it on a billboard, when comedians ask him, he's like, if I could put anything on a billboard, it'd be 2 words: just work. And he's like, I wish I could tell you it was something different. I wish I could tell you there was some magic potion you could drink to be talented. Like, you cultivate your talent for sure. And, the 10,000 hours is a default thing. Everyone talks about, like, you got to do 10,000 hours to master your craft. So it's like, if you're not getting where you need to be, put some time in. And like Chris really hit the nail on the head. I can't tell you how many times I will see somebody be like, I'm not getting this thing. I'm just not moving at the pace I want. And I'm like, well, I don't ever see you in the open mic watching other comics. I see you do your 5 minutes and then you go sit at the bar. And so you only got 5 minutes out of 10,000 hours you need. But that mic was 2.5 hours long. And if you would have sat down, paid attention to what other people were doing, right or wrong, you can learn lessons from both, then you could have got 2.5 hours logged towards your 10,000. You'll get there a lot faster if you're willing to commit and do those things and go to shows. And another great piece of advice I got up from a guy named Rich Tallarico was like, the best way to get to the next level is crush the level you're at. And he's like, if you work in the mailroom, crush the mailroom. And one day you'll wander in the elevator and you'll be on the 4th floor and somebody's going to tell you to get them a coffee. And you'll be like, I don't work on the 4th floor. They're like, yeah, you do. He's like, there is no rite of passage. Sometimes everybody wants this like movie moment where somebody pins a ribbon on you and says, you're a star. you get knighted by the industry, and that's just not really the reality. So like, don't get discouraged just because you haven't gotten knighted,
Yeah.
or you haven't had someone come up to you with a big cigar and be like, I want to cut a record, kid. Like that may not happen.
True. No.
It may happen. It can happen, but it's like there are so many different paths to get where you're going. Just because it's not the path you chose, or it didn't happen on the timeline you chose, you have to stay patient and understand that if you crush the level you're at, one day you'll be working on the 4th floor, then you'll do good on the 4th floor, and you'll wander in the elevator again, and you'll be on the 10th floor.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, now I work on the 10th floor, but you won't remember it. You're not going to get an email with the promotion. That's not how art works usually. That's the difference, is like, you're not going to get called into someone's office and promoted. It's just one day it's going to happen. You're just going to be better at your craft, and you're going to be getting paid more, and you're going to be getting better opportunities. So cling to that and just work. That's my advice. If you don't go work in the coal mine. Unless you like coal mining, then go mine coal. I'm all for it.
Crush it if that's what you want to do. Yeah.
That's the thing, yeah.
Yeah, Jenna, you know what? You guys have all come with so many different valuable angles and just ways that, coming from your perspective, your respected industries, what you've done, how life just kind of turned and twisted and turned its own, but just how you also can help others. It's not just about you. And I think that's key too. We're closing up, unfortunately. But before we leave, I just want to take some time to give each of you guys a moment to just kind of give us what's happening right now, as far as what events you're having coming up, anything that's in the loop, and just also ways that people can connect with you. I know, Chris, you guys are having an event coming up soon called the Music at the Intersection or something like that. Yeah, tell us a little bit about that and kind of everything else.
It'll be here, St. Louis Music Heritage Festival will be here September 10, 11, 12. Tickets go on sale to the general public tomorrow. Got over 65 acts on 6 stages in the Grand Center Arts District, celebrating St. Louis's footprint on the American Songbook. So a lot of fantastic acts. Layla Hathaway will be there, Gregory Porter, Booker T, Lee Fields, Ayers, and so many more. I even think John Henry's going to be there. And also get your Open Highway Music Festival tickets, because it's too cool that St. Louis has got many festivals to pick from right now. So the festival would be great. And then also come down to any of the Kranzberg Arts Foundation galleries and enjoy some great visual art. Come to the Wednesday night jazz jam with your family. It's free for all ages. Support the arts, get out, show up, and let us know that you're here. So no, it's great. Thanks for the time today. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. We're going to have a fun summer. John, tell us what's going on with you.
Yeah, you could check out openhighwaymusic.com. That's the link to the Open Highway Music Festival, August 5th through 8th at Chesterfield Amphitheater. Nice. And then the music side is johnhenrymusic.net. Great.
We're gonna make sure to put all that up for everyone. Rafe, what do you have behind you, and what's going on with you? Rafe, unfortunately, his audio is not in tow right now. So I'm going to put up, Rafe's going to connect with me. He's going to let me know all ways people can find out about him, learn about him, follow him. And we're also going to put up any events that he has coming up. I know you should be having some coming up fairly soon, right? Yes, no, maybe so? Okay, good. Well, thank you guys for being a part of the show today. And everyone out there, again, we're talking with leaders, not just leaders, but mindful leaders. They've worked hard. They've worked relentlessly in their passion, and they are seeing the fruits of their work. But also, it's just not about them. They're wanting to find ways to help you find out how you can be inspired, and whatever passion you have, continue to follow, continue to strive for it, because I will tell you that it's worth it. So thank you guys again, and thank you guys for being a part of the Dietitian Against Diets podcast show. Talk to you guys next time. Bye, Rafe. Bye, John and Chris.
Yeah, thank you.
So thanks for being a part of their stories, their struggles, and their successes. Because of the work of the local dairy farmers and efforts from Midwest Dairy, we were able to bring more monthly conversations to you from mindful leaders that can be able to come to the table and tell you about their own path that can inspire you. So be on the lookout for next month's panel, Conversations with Mindful Leaders. See you next month.